I'm Sarah, a 30-year-old woman who welcomed my first child 3 weeks ago. My son, Liam, is healthy and wonderful. My husband, Ethan, 35, and I have been together for 7 years, married for 2, and both work in tech. We live 4 hours from my family, and trouble started when I announced my pregnancy at 6 months. My brother, James, 35, and his wife, Rachel, 34, have been trying to conceive for 5 years. Rachel suffered 2 miscarriages early on, then nothing for years. Last December, she carried a pregnancy to 7 months before losing the baby. It devastated them. When I shared my pregnancy news, Rachel left the room in tears, James trailing behind, and they didn't return. My mother, Margaret, 65, later told me Rachel wept for hours that night. I sympathized with her pain but couldn't hide my pregnancy forever. Things grew tense afterward. Rachel started emailing me articles about pregnancy complications and infant loss. She'd call my parents with detailed questions about my health and doctor visits. At Christmas, she touched my belly without permission and commented that she'd be the best caregiver for my child. My mother raised James and me after our father passed when I was 15. She's always been protective, especially of James, who stayed near home while I moved away for college and work. She adores Rachel like a daughter. Post-Christmas, my mother began odd conversations, questioning if Ethan and I were ready for parenthood given our demanding jobs. She asked about our savings and apartment size, then praised Rachel's part-time remote work, suggesting it left her more time for a baby. I thought she was just worried about me as a first-time mom living far away. But in February, at 8 months pregnant, she called with a chilling suggestion. She explained that Rachel was struggling deeply after her loss. A therapist had suggested being around infants might help her heal. My mother proposed Rachel stay with us for a few weeks after Liam's birth to assist with him and bond. I firmly declined. Then she revealed her real plan. James and Rachel had explored adoption, but it was expensive and slow. Since Ethan and I were young with busy careers, she suggested they raise Liam. They had a house with a yard, Rachel could stay home, and they were more stable and mature. I hung up stunned. Ethan was working late, so I sat alone in our nursery, staring at the baby items we'd lovingly chosen, grappling with my mother's suggestion that I give my child to my brother's wife. The next day, calls came not just from my mother, but also from James. He said Rachel was barely eating or sleeping, had turned their spare room into a nursery, and was buying baby clothes. He believed caring for a child could help her, and it would benefit Liam too. He argued Ethan and I weren't even married yet, lived in a small apartment, and worked long hours, questioning how we could give a child enough attention. I clarified we planned to marry before Liam's birth and that many working parents raise happy kids. James called me selfish, stressing family unity. The pressure mounted over the next weeks. My mother called, sobbing about Rachel's worsening grief. My aunt Linda, 54, my mother's sister, also started calling, saying the family was worried about Rachel and that I could help. Rachel never called me directly but commented on my social media. When I posted a nursery photo, she noted she'd picked the same crib. When I mentioned buying baby clothes, she said she'd already bought newborn and 3-month sizes. At 38 weeks pregnant, I hit my limit. Rachel and James showed up unannounced at our apartment on a Saturday morning while Ethan was out shopping. I opened the door, and Rachel brushed past me to the nursery, rearranging items and talking about how she'd set up their home. She'd brought a car seat, wanting to ensure it was installed for when they took Liam home. I told her to leave. She collapsed, kneeling in the nursery, begging to have my baby. She claimed her loss meant she was destined to raise mine and promised I could visit. James tried to calm her, but she screamed that it was unfair I had a healthy baby when I didn't want one as much as she did, calling me too young and selfish to parent well. I called the police. By the time they arrived, Ethan was back and had calmed Rachel. The officers took statements but called it a family matter, suggesting a restraining order if we felt unsafe. The next day, Ethan and I married at the courthouse to solidify our parental rights and block any legal interference from my family. Liam was born 2 weeks later. We didn't tell my family I was in labor. My mother learned of Liam's birth through a mutual friend who saw Ethan's social media post. The calls resumed immediately. My mother cried about missing her grandson's birth. James was upset we hadn't included them, but Rachel's response terrified me. She called from James's phone, and when I answered, thinking it was him, she spoke excitedly about finally meeting her son, saying she'd taken time off work and prepared his room. She genuinely believed Liam would be hers. Ethan and I cut contact, blocking their numbers and privatizing our social media. My mother sent letters and packages, which we returned unopened. A cousin told me Rachel was telling their church community we were struggling and that they planned to adopt our baby. She was collecting donations for baby supplies and showing off a nursery. My mother told relatives we were influenced by Ethan's family, but would eventually see reason, claiming Rachel just needed time with Liam to heal. I never imagined my mother would support someone else's claim to my child. I thought families protected each other, not schemed to take what mattered most. Ethan has been incredible. His parents across the country were shocked by my family's actions and offered to help us relocate if needed. We're considering moving before Liam grows older to avoid living in fear that James and Rachel might try to take him. I also don't want Liam growing up thinking he belongs to someone else. The hardest part is mourning the family ties I thought were unbreakable. I believed my mother would always support me and that James would be a proud uncle. Instead, they've chosen Rachel's delusion over my rights as Liam's mother. I wonder if I'm being too harsh. Rachel's grief is real, and loss can push people to extremes. But wanting to raise someone else's child crosses a line into something darker. Ethan thinks we should consult a lawyer to document everything for future protection. Part of me hopes Rachel's healing will resolve this, but another part knows this may be our reality now. I just want to raise Liam in peace, without constant fear. I never thought motherhood would mean losing my family. Update 1: Liam is now 11 weeks old and doing wonderfully. The newborn phase is tough, but Ethan and I are managing. We found a rhythm, and I plan to return to work soon. A month ago, I reached out to my mother's pastor, Reverend Thompson, 50, who's known our family for years and officiated James and Rachel's wedding. I hoped he could help Rachel see her behavior was unhealthy. I called him Tuesday evening and explained everything. He listened patiently and said he'd noticed concerning signs from Rachel, but hadn't grasped the full situation. During her grief counseling, she'd mentioned a baby joining their family soon, but was vague when pressed. Reverend Thompson promised to meet with James and Rachel to address their unhealthy path and offered to mediate a family discussion if we agreed. I gave him 2 weeks to try, then we'd reassess. The first week was calm, no calls, visits, or packages. Ethan and I hoped professional intervention was helping Rachel face reality. Then Reverend Thompson called with a troubling update. He'd met with James and Rachel 3 times. In the first meeting, James seemed to acknowledge their plan was unrealistic, admitting Rachel's grief had clouded their judgment, and they should respect our choice to keep Liam. But Rachel reacted differently, claiming I'd asked them to raise Liam because Ethan and I weren't ready. She said our no-contact stance was just temporary stress, and we'd soon relent. Reverend Thompson said Rachel had detailed plans for Liam's baptism, first Christmas, and even his first school day, speaking as if he already lived with them. In the second meeting, he tried to make her see Liam belonged with us. Rachel grew angry, accusing him of misinterpreting God's plan, insisting her loss meant she was meant to raise Liam. By the third meeting, James had reversed course, defending Rachel's right to hope for a family and calling me cruel for keeping Liam from someone who'd love him fully. Reverend Thompson ended their counseling, urging them to seek professional help elsewhere, as Rachel's grip on reality was slipping. He also shared a disturbing detail. Rachel had been helping in the church nursery, calling one baby practice for when Liam arrived. The baby's parents asked her to stop, but she persisted, leading to her ban from the nursery after a public outburst. Ethan and I took stronger precautions, installing security cameras, changing locks, and altering our routines to avoid sharing anything online. 2 weeks later, our neighbor, Mrs. Ellis, 45, told us a woman claiming to be my sister asked about our schedules and habits in the building lobby the previous day. Mrs. Ellis, sensing something off, gave no details. She described the woman as blonde, about 33, in a pink sweater, carrying a diaper bag, clearly Rachel. That day, my cousin Lily, 24, revealed Rachel had been posting in local parenting groups online, asking about transitioning a baby to a new home and adoption timelines. Lily sent screenshots before Rachel deleted the posts, which showed Rachel planning as if Liam would live with them, not hypothetically but concretely. Lily also said my mother was calling relatives, claiming we had postpartum depression and needed help but were too stubborn to accept it. She portrayed herself as a worried grandmother without mentioning Rachel's demands. Ethan and I sent a certified letter to my mother, James, and Rachel, stating Liam would stay with us permanently and warning of legal action if they interfered. We kept copies for our records. 2 days later, James called furious, accusing us of being cruel and dramatic. He said Rachel was improving, but our letter set her back, convincing her we were swayed by outside forces and more determined to save Liam. I told James Rachel's recovery couldn't jeopardize our family's safety. He called me selfish, saying Rachel just needed time. I realized James shared her delusion, believing their desire for a child justified taking mine. We began searching for apartments elsewhere, preparing to relocate if needed. We consulted a family lawyer specializing in custody and protective orders. She reviewed our evidence and confirmed we had grounds for a restraining order if Rachel made further contact or threats. She advised documenting all interactions for potential court use. I never thought I'd need legal protection from my family, but Rachel's behavior was growing erratic, and my mother and James were enabling her instead of getting her help. I want to enjoy Liam's early months, but I'm constantly focused on keeping him safe from those who should be celebrating him. Update 2: Liam is 7 months old, crawling, and a joyful baby, only fussing when hungry or tired. Ethan and I are settled into parenting, and I've been back at work for 3 months. Things were quiet until last week, when everything escalated. My cousin Lily called Monday evening with shocking news. As a social worker in my mother's county, she was assigned a case about a couple reported for trying to buy a baby illegally. During the home visit, she discovered it was James and Rachel. A neighbor had reported Rachel discussing financial arrangements for a private adoption that seemed suspicious, especially since she'd shown off a nursery claiming a baby was coming without involving a legitimate agency. Lily recused herself due to the family connection, but learned enough to be alarmed. James and Rachel had paid thousands to an online contact promising to arrange adoptions, only to be scammed. The investigator found their nursery was tailored specifically for Liam, with his photos from Ethan's social media framed on the walls. Rachel had bought clothes in his current and future sizes and created a photo album of his first months, as if she'd been there. She'd even made a timeline for when she expected us to give Liam up, believing we'd realize parenting was too hard. James had researched grandparents' rights and legal ways to challenge our custody, consulting lawyers about proving us unfit. The county closed the case, deeming James and Rachel victims of the scam, but recommended a mandatory mental health evaluation for Rachel due to her detachment from reality. Lily shared this out of concern for our safety, noting the social worker advised no contact with children until Rachel got proper treatment, though this wasn't enforceable. Ethan and I met with our lawyer the next day, sharing Lily's information. She urged us to file for a protective order immediately and document our stable home environment, photos of our safe apartment, Liam's medical records, and our job stability, in case James and Rachel made false claims to child services. On Wednesday, we secured a protective order barring James, Rachel, and my mother from coming within 600 feet of us, or contacting us directly or through others. We thought this would end things, but on Friday, my mother confronted Ethan at his workplace, bypassing security to approach him in the parking lot. Sobbing, she begged him to reconsider cutting Liam off from family, saying Rachel was worsening and time with Liam could help her heal. She offered to cover our rent and childcare for supervised visits. When Ethan said Liam wasn't for sale and Rachel needed professional help, she accused him of turning me against my family and ruining Rachel's chance at happiness. Ethan recorded the encounter, which was crucial since my mother later denied most of it. Security escorted her out, and Ethan's employer filed a police report for violating the protective order. That weekend, we decided to move. Ethan's company approved an immediate transfer to a branch in another state, and my job allows remote work. We're not sharing our new location with my family, including Lily, despite her help, to avoid any leaks. The scariest part is the photo album Rachel made, imagining Liam's life with her. The level of planning is chilling. We hired professional movers through Ethan's company to leave no trace. Some might think we're overreacting, but the social worker's report showed Rachel's behavior escalating, and the scam showed how far she'd go, even illegally, to get a child. Liam deserves a life free of this threat, focused on being a happy kid, not someone else's fixation. Update 3: Liam is 15 months old, walking everywhere and thriving in our new city where we've lived for 8 months. Ethan loves his new job, and I'm excelling remotely. We found a family-friendly apartment, and Liam attends a wonderful daycare 3 days a week. For months, I startled at every knock or familiar car, but the fear has faded. We've built a new routine and made friends unaware of our family drama. 2 months ago, Lily called with an update that brought some closure. Rachel was hospitalized for 3 weeks after what James called a nervous breakdown. Lily didn't know the trigger, but Rachel received inpatient psychiatric care. During this time, James began counseling alone, admitting to his therapist that his focus on supporting Rachel's grief blinded him to reason. He'd convinced himself we'd willingly give up Liam, thinking it would benefit everyone. The therapist helped him see that enabling Rachel's delusion delayed her healing. After her release, James and Rachel moved to live with Rachel's sister in another state for a fresh start, away from constant reminders of their losses. My mother, however, struggled with the fallout. Many relatives distanced themselves after learning she'd encouraged us to give up Liam. She told people she was just trying to help, claiming things spiraled unintentionally. But Lily revealed my mother had researched grandparents' rights and consulted lawyers about proving us unfit due to our ages and work schedules, believing we'd agree to let Rachel raise Liam to avoid court. This confirmed our decision to move was right. She wasn't just emotionally pressuring us, but actively trying to undermine our parental rights. Lily asked if I'd share contact details for my mother to reconnect. I declined. Some might call me harsh, but my mother's willingness to legally challenge my parenthood is unforgivable. Ethan and I aren't ready to trust my family again, and we may never be. Liam is flourishing, loving books and blocks with a contagious laugh. I sometimes wonder what his bond with my family could have been, but Rachel's photo album, filled with stolen images of him, reminds me why we cut ties. Liam is my son, not a tool to fill someone else's void. We plan to have another child soon, and my family won't know until we choose to tell them, if ever. Our new life isn't perfect, but feels safe. We've joined a parenting group, and Liam enjoys playdates and parties. Ethan's parents visit often, offering loving, respectful grandparenting. Some might say I should have done more for Rachel or given my mother another chance, but Liam's safety comes first. Children aren't fixes for adult grief. The protective order remains, though unused since our move. We keep all records in case we need them. No one wants to flee their family, but sometimes it's necessary. We traded the support I thought we had for the peace we needed. Liam will grow up knowing he's loved for who he is. For others facing family boundary violations, trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it likely is. Protecting your child's well-being trumps maintaining toxic ties. We're building new traditions and memories, and Liam will never know the chaos of his first year, which is how it should be. The family we've created matters more than the one I was born into, and though we learned this painfully, we're stronger for it.